Apathy will kill you. This is the time for action. You're already underwater.
Welcome to Shielded, the last line of cyber defense by PQ Shield, the podcast where we are moving the conversation around post-quantum cryptography from the why to the how. I'm Joe Lintzen, your host, and I'm here to guide you through the challenges, innovations, and solutions that will help your organization stay secure in the quantum era. Let's future-proof your defenses together. Welcome to Shielded, the last line of cyber defense, your essential guide to navigating the quantum age of cybersecurity. I'm your host, Joe Lintzen, and I'm excited to speak to today's guest, Adrian Neal, Senior Director and Global Lead for Post-Quantum Cryptography at Capgemini. Adrian is a globally recognized expert in cybersecurity and cryptography with decades of experience across various industries, including finance, defense, and telecoms, just to name a few. He's here today to help us tackle one of the most urgent challenges facing businesses today, preparing for the quantum future and the migration to post-quantum cryptography. In this episode, we're diving into the issue of procrastination in the C-suite and why so many organizations still aren't taking action on quantum readiness, even though it's clear the threat is imminent. We'll explore how businesses can start the transition today and avoid getting caught behind the curve as the quantum revolution rapidly approaches. Adrian, welcome to the podcast. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you, Joe.
Absolutely. So Adrian, with your quite fascinating career from banking to defense and several startups and all the way to your current role at Capgemini, where you lead the firm's global efforts in post-quantum cryptography and the migration, with nearly 4 decades of experience, how would you say has your journey shaped your personal perspective on the urgency of transitioning to post-quantum cryptography?
It's been a long career, and yes, everything that I am now is shaped by those 40 years, most definitely. Let's go back to peak AI back in the turn of 99, 2000, 2001, and all the great hope and the hype, then the great crash, and so on. And very slowly, it started to gain some kind of acceptance. It got used here and there. But yes, it's the whole lots of hype. Then it goes to nowhere, and then people sleep it. We don't have that kind of time now. This is not that situation, and I think we're not in one of Gartner's cycles where they think, oh yes, well that's fine. We'll talk about it now. It'll go to nothing, and then slowly we'll pick it up and we'll take it seriously. No, that's not going to happen. This is way different. It's not even Y2K, because Y2K, well, you just had a date and you just knew that, well, at that date we'll be fine. This is what we've got to do. This is the date. It's really quite simple. Just go figure, right? Well, it's not that either. The job is really huge, what we have to do. We're not quite sure what the job is. We're not quite sure what the date is. All we know, whatever the date is getting closer. So however much time we've got, it's just getting less and less and less. Sooner or later, you're going to see the panic start to seep in to the boardrooms and the CISOs when they realize, I always like this idea that, we tell our clients, you're talking a 3 to 5 year transition, migration program. I'm just being nice. I know full well it's an 8-year thing at best. It's 3 to 5 years if it goes perfectly, if it's executed on a dime, and but there's no such thing as that. That doesn't happen anywhere. So, guys, plan for 8 years, and in about 5 years, you'll start having to take emergency measures, mitigate, basically triage your network and so forth, because suddenly something will happen, and everyone will stop. Everyone will panic, go into chaos, and that's how it's probably going to happen. But hey, my job here is got to get them on that journey, got to get them doing their plans. The sooner the sooner you start planning, the sooner you'll understand what's ahead of you. The sooner you can take rational decisions on, okay, how are we going to do this? What's important? What isn't important? Stuff like that.
So I guess if I distill a key lesson out of the past 4 decades, then it's probably going to be something like timelines never necessarily work out the way that they are communicated in the first place.
Have they ever? I mean, I just think of public infrastructure services, the Channel Tunnel, the building of this bridge, or whatever it is. We know they never go to time. We know they run over because apparently we don't seem to have the ability to effectively plan that well. Otherwise, everything would be. Unless, of course, you're Swiss, in which actually things go exactly as you planned. As I say, sitting here in my office in Switzerland.
In Zurich, right? Yeah,
yeah.
So there's a different view in Switzerland on timelines for sure.
There is.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you bring up Y2K, right? Because oftentimes people say, "Oh, Y2K, Y2Q, it's so very similar." And Y2K was a non-event, and
no. Okay. Yeah, and that's where, of course, I have to jump in and say, what do you mean non-event? The whole purpose of all the work was to make sure it was a non-event. Yes, it was supposed to be a non-event. That's the reason why we spent a decade saying we've got to make sure this is become nothing happens. Everything things don't stop working. Yes, the non-event was the goal, and they think, oh, nothing happened. Oh, well, it must have been a waste of time then. I mean, that's the stupidest possible way people could look at it, and it infuriates me slightly when they say that, because don't you understand? Don't you understand? But anyway, hey, that's yeah. And I got the feeling they're going to say this again, aren't they? About the quantum. I've spoken to CISOs and said, yeah, I just don't believe it. I just don't accept it. Like, all right, well, we're all entitled to our opinions and our views. But I think you're wrong.
And I think the other analogy that we can draw along that line, right? It was a non-event because everyone was well prepared, and I think the other analogy that I oftentimes think is there between as much as I dislike the term Y2Q and Y2K is that folks that were within the know of that little date issue, they knew about it decades before it actually happened, right? It was just nobody was really listening or paying attention. And I think if you ask any cryptographer, mathematician for the past 3 decades, everyone has been, banking on cryptographic agility eventually becoming a reality. And this can be a catalyst to achieve that, dream.
Yes.
That
it was always seen as someone else's problem. Kind of, it's we did know about Y2K for some time, but who was listening? Nobody was listening. It was like, well, that's not our problem. Somebody will just solve that for us. We don't need to think about it. Of course, it doesn't always work like that. That somebody was us. We solved it ourselves. But if you're too, now here's the thing, isn't it? If you're too early, no one takes it seriously. And I think last year we were still a little bit there. This year, I'd say seems to be different. You've got a lot more institutions, organizations publishing statements on, guys, you need to get ready. And I think the best one was the one that came out, was it last week or the week before, from the Bank of International Settlements. And yeah, theirs was the most kind of, how can I put it, direct, as in, guys, if you don't take this seriously, we are all facing serious financial collapse, systemic financial collapse. You've got to take it seriously. And as an institution, banks generally listen to the guys in Basel. I mean, you don't really get to argue with them. They set the rules. So
right, yeah, I think certainly to your point about the the type of conversation and how it changed between last year and this year. Certainly the starting line, was NIST releasing the standards, and then subsequently, like you said, more and more guidance coming out of, either vertical organizations or governments or, EU directives, the UK through NCSC, promoting their timelines, right? And of course, all of that is very, very relevant to your day job, really, right? I mean, you're guiding some of the largest businesses through that complexities of securing their systems and preparing for the quantum era, right? So I think as as sort of the regulatory landscape evolves, and when you look at strategies, what are the strategies you recommend those organizations adopt so they can make sure to future-proof? Well, there's cybersecurity, but then also make sure that this supply chain can deliver, hopefully according to those timelines, or at least close by.
We have a number of different types of organizations we deal with, and that does require a little bit of adjustment to how we approach this. We have we deal with major governments, intelligence agencies, police forces, and so forth, health services, national health services, and they have quite some different requirements to, say, a manufacturing company or a bank or an insurance company, for example. They each come with their own particular problems that they will face. If I think of government, the government has a lot of information that has a very, very long shelf life, as in it may be 50 or 70 years before it can be revealed. Must be kept confidential, secret for that timeline. Sometimes they have secrets that must never be revealed. It's indefinite confidentiality, and they're not going to be following the same PQC migration path as others. If these algorithms were to last 20 years, I think they will. Hence the whole idea of let's all be crypto agile, which is kind of code word for saying you may need to change your algorithm a little bit sooner than you think. Let's just be honest there. Even 20 years would be too soon for them, as in, no, we need a solution that won't just make our data vulnerable in 20 years. No, it's got to be something different. So we're taking quite a different approach with those guys. Banks, they are following a fairly standard model of post-quantum readiness and migration. That they're a little bit ahead of the game, really, because they're going to feel the pain first, or they certainly believe so. I'm pretty convinced that financial services are where it will happen first, and the likes of the big vendors in hardware, the Thaleses of the world, and the Entrusts, and those who supply the banks with hardware, they're already on this. They're already okay. You're going to need new hardware. So there's a certain degree of being a bit more ahead of the game there. I mean, I had a chat with Thales just a few weeks ago when they were saying they had upgraded their Luna CA. I think the Luna CA was one of the early ones where they hold cryptographic keys mainly for PKI and SSL and so forth. And they were saying that they just did a shift of the algorithm. They cleared out the memory and put one of the new algorithms from the NIST PQC algorithms into the box in the same hardware, ran it, and discovered it went from 10,000 transactions per second down to 200. Phenomenal reduction. So they're saying that you are looking at these algorithms are different. They are very, very, very different. Now, there's lots of benchmarking going on where they say, they seem to be, well, actually, they seem to perform even better than ours. And that's misleading. That may be true, but when you start doing underload, it starts to change radically. The performance drops radically. I haven't gone into the algorithm itself, but I imagine there's a whole memory thing going on, pushing bigger chunks of memory in and out, bigger chunks of data, pushing in and out of memory. That will have an impact, of course. And so it's things like this which people aren't thinking about.
Right. And of course, I mean, you're touching on several different aspects here, right? When as you were explaining earlier, sort of more the organizational viewpoint of a large energy provider is going to approach this differently than a bank is going to approach this differently than say a government.
Yes.
So that's the organizational side. And then of course there's the technology infrastructure driven side where like you said, in the case of the hardware security module vendors, they sit very low in the stack, sit very low in the supply chain, and of course need to get moving on becoming being able to support fully quantum secure applications by means of adding those new algorithms to their to their products, so that then the organizations can source it. Now, I think something that you said earlier, I would like to pick up on, and I think you call it disbelief that you oftentimes see in those conversations with, C-suite executives, that they're like, quantum computing, it's always a thing that's, 10 years in the future, and it's not going to affect us. So in your experience, what's a good approach to maybe shift that mindset and help them come to the realization that, this quantum threat might be closer than they realize, and that action is maybe required sooner than later?
I usually talk about AI. I say, well, okay, let's use that as an analogy. AI has had 2 black swan events in the last 10 years. 2 in the last 10 years, right? You had 2016. You had was it AlphaGo? I think it was. I'm trying to think of it as Google. It could be Google. Basically, there was the game Go. Is it Go? Yeah, there's a game. And the South Korean game. And they were the data scientists working on it didn't expect to actually win. They did win. They beat this South Korean chap in. I think they lost one and then won all the rest. The issue was they saw it make a move, and they thought, "Oh, it's clearly made a mistake." And then it just from this move, which was, it suddenly just wiped the board clean. The problem is, they were saying at that time they realized the AI had just jumped 10 years in one day. It had jumped 10 years. They said it was strange after they won. The only people not smiling were the data scientists, because it's like, this shouldn't have happened. We are not ready for AI to jump 10 years in one day. We are nowhere near ready. That was a wake-up call of, we don't necessarily know how these things are going to play out. Okay? Quantum is waiting for its, black swan event. It'll probably get one. And when it does, it's going to be that wake-up call. The problem is, the consequences could be a little bit worse for us. It could be, if we're not ready for that black swan event to suddenly happen, it's going to create panic and chaos. That's the thing. What do you think is going to happen to the market? Because I always say, right, what's the attack? What's the attack vector here? Well, hey, if I had a quantum computer, what would I do? I'd probably hack one of the big Bitcoin accounts or an Ethereum account, because you're one key, $100 million. Okay. Right. Okay. Yeah, I'll have a little bit, I'll lose a bit trying to somehow cash that out, but okay. But the point is, you don't need to forget about the cashing out. The damage you've done to society in this sudden panic you've caused. You're looking at almost societal collapse as people start to panic that such a thing could happen. They all thought, no, we're fine. This is years away. Suddenly something like this comes along. Horrible realizations occur, like, well, how far are these guys? How long did it take them? Did they do it in? Did it take them a week to break the key? Did it take them 10 minutes? Panic. No one knows. Everyone's unsure. Risk is going through the roof. That's what we're worried about. That's the fear, that we're going to get caught out, and then it just becomes chaotic, and then we're all scrambling to figure out what to do next. That's what we're trying to avoid. That's what we really don't want to happen.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And in the analogy with AI, you mentioned there were 2 black swan events. So one was the defeat Go, and then the second one was
DeepSeek, of course. All of a sudden, you can produce, what cost us, $6 billion to produce can now be done for, $6 million. It's like, I think it was 1,000 times cheaper. Even if they did steal, the LLMs, we don't know. But either way, they did it.
If they managed to pull that off, then that's an achievement in and by itself.
One way or the other, they did. They produced what we have, a fraction of the cost in a very, 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 very fast time, which changed everything. As in the whole. Now what do we do? because whatever we do again, it'll just happen again. So it suddenly changed the entire thinking. If I was an investor in AI at that moment in time, I'd be pretty upset that, hey, well, there goes all my money. It changed perspectives instantly. So
right, it was
yeah,
certainly eye-opening events, absolutely, and
right. And
a good.
quantum will get their black swan event. Why shouldn't it? It's the same kind of thing. It's frontier type experimentation. We're just seeing what happens here. We're trying things out, and all of a sudden, there's a breakthrough, or worse still, there's a breakthrough you don't hear about, of course, because that's probably how it's really going to happen. This is if you control quantum computers, in terms of if you're the most advanced one that can do things, you're not going to shout about it, are you?
No,
we hear all this
keep
hype.
it nice and quiet. Yeah.
Right, you're going to keep it quiet. You're not going to know until it's too late, and then So there's some pretty ugly things that can happen.
Absolutely, and of course we're talking about the threat side of the equation here, right? So I think, to me, in cybersecurity, you always have sort of that side where you look at the threat, you look at the risk associated with it, but then you also look at it. Probably folks that have been in this industry for a while, they look at it with a love-hate relationship, and that's of course the regulatory side of it. Right. So we talked a little bit about timelines and that aspect. So in this specific context, what role do you think that regulatory measures can and should play to help us alleviate that risk?
Well, it's funny you should ask that. We know that the UK government have been surveying CISOs recently, pretty much saying, so what are you doing? Actually, what they're actually saying is, what seems to be the problem, because you're not doing anything?
That's an approach.
Well, as I say, let's cut to the chase. They issued the survey because they were starting to get concerned that nothing was happening. Just like Bank of International Settlements, as in, guys, you should be, let's look at the chart now, little graphic. You should already have completed your migration by now, or at least you're planning as. And they're seeing nothing started, and they're thinking, "What's happening?" What seems to, what are the blockages? What seems to be holding you back, apart from total apathy, or I mean, the truth is probably that, hey, I have a day-to-day problems that I need to deal with. This isn't one of them. What they were really trying to say is, and in fact, they actually did ask this, do we need legislation? Would legislation help you convince your board that something must be done? If you're having trouble convincing them, should we just bring in legislation to make it happen? And then you don't have to have an argument with the CEO over budgets for this, because it's no longer an option. That's where they were leading, and they did actually ask that question of, would it help? And I think plenty of CISOs that I know certainly sort of said, well, yeah, it would actually. I know one CISO actually says, I'll just ignore it if they do that. But hey, we won't go into that. But yes, maybe legislation is a friend here, because CISOs just are struggling to convince their senior management, the C-suite, that we have a problem that really needs some time, money, attention, and you're kicking the can down the road still.
Yeah,
that's what they.
Well, I can imagine that. I can imagine that one of the challenges in that argument is that such a transition is probably not likely to be seen as a revenue generating exercise, rather the opposite. So
right. So I'm never delivering good news for people, ever. I'm basically telling you, you're in trouble. You need to spend money, and you need to do it now. And what kind of message is that? I mean, and the business benefit, you get to stay in business. Oh, great. Okay. Yeah, I'll take that to the board and see how I get on. You see what I mean? So it's a very, very, very hard sell if the board not already convinced. So in a sense, I think we need legislation. We need the government to step in and just say, look, we can't just leave this leave this to the markets to decide. We're just going to have to do something here, guys. This is a bit too serious.
Create that framework and create that compliance. Framework.
Let's not wait for the crash. Let's not wait for the crash like last time. The financial crash. We don't have to have a crash to have legislation saying, "Oh, maybe we should have had legislation." Let's not wait. Let's put it in now.
Flip it the other way around. Yeah. So I think in sort of that thought process, then of course it's first and foremost about awareness within executive levels, and then of course compliance is a welcome driver. Now there's still sometimes a perceived gap between awareness and actually taking action. So what do you see out there? What is sort of that hindrance to go from awareness to action? Like is it we don't know where to start, so we might as well continue to procrastinate, or what are sort of the challenges there?
You might get an organization says, "Oh, let's do a readiness plan." And they might be quite keen on the idea, and like we should do this. This is a good thing, and only to find out after the readiness plan, there's no budget for another 2 years to actually do any of this. So great. Well, at least you got a plan then, I guess. But there you have it's just disjointed. There's not necessarily a clear strategy. It's just a case of, I guess we should get on and do it. Probably on budget that the board don't even know about. They've probably found some spare cash somewhere. We'll just get it done. But there's not the buy-in. There's not the buy-in. There's not the C-suite strategic support that you need, as in it's got to be their problem. You've got to make it their problem. If it's not their problem, you'll struggle, because the migration is the hard bit. That's the readiness plan is fine. It's the hard bit is actually doing it and getting the X 100 million you'll probably need. I mean, that's certainly the figure we've heard from one bank, not a particularly large bank either. 300 million, 400 million. I presume over a sort of a 3-year time span. And you think, yes, and you're not even a large bank. Blimey, that's going to be.
So where does a number like that sit in sort of a percentage to their revenue? Is that something that one can somewhat?
Maybe that's why they're splitting it over three years, because it's a bit of a hit. But what options do you have? I imagine you might combine it with let's make it part of, say, a transformation program, so it's not all a negative burning of cash. I think for no business benefit. I mean, you can do things like that. No, that's not a bad thing.
So frame it as a technology update with the regular cycles.
A refresh. I mean, the worry there, of course, is this is the problem they'll start to find. Is that you've got equipment or software that is kind of out of support, or at least is legacy, and there is no PQC migration path for that software or hardware. You don't know it yet because you haven't discovered it, but you will. And then what are you going to do? I mean, you thought you thought the migration was going fine, and now a critical piece you have no plan for. You have no way of upgrading it. Now you're looking at re-architecture. You're looking at mitigation strategies, re-architecture, finding a different supplier. You've now hit a problem that's not just going to get solved overnight. And if that's on your critical path and other things dependent upon it, you've now just pushed out your migration planner 6 months, a year, 18 months. But of course, you're not going to know that if you haven't started the plan yet. And this is why planning is so important. We're only planning so we know just how bad things are, just how bad the piece of work is ahead of us. Yeah, you can sit there and not know that if you want, but it just gets uglier and uglier the longer you wait.
Right. So is that a typical outcome of if you think about the projects that you're involved with, sort of in those early stages where you say, go in, do your key inventory, look at your risk profile, and is it typically the case that okay, that's how bad it is? Or
I'm judging that based upon just what I know of the past 40 years being in banks. I've been in modern banks, and in a corner there'll be an XT or with something running on Windows 95, and they're saying, "Oh, don't touch that. We've lost the source code. It's a mandatory reporting service. We just need to keep it switched on." That's not actually a made-up story. That's actually a real story. That's in the City of London. And I'm pretty certain it's not unique by any stretch. I mean, think of PKI. Think of the root certificate authorities. The root CAs. They're usually residing on a laptop that was locked in a safe 20 years ago. Guess what operating system it's going to be running? Probably Windows 95. I also know that for a fact as well. I've seen that before. You open it like, oh yeah, this laptop's 20 years old, so's everything on it. Yeah, so has anyone got the login for it? Yeah, it's people forget what they've acquired over the years, and PKI is one of those ones where it was supposed to have a long lifespan, long lifespan. 20 years at least. And you go back to it, and of course what's the upgrade path here? Do we have to revoke every certificate? That's a big job. How are we going to do that? All of a sudden it starts to click, as in this is a monster, migration work we've got ahead of us. So, yeah.
So what's the recommendation then to actually get started on that journey? Finding those legacy bits, and I think there's probably oftentimes legacy systems that's like, yeah, we can switch that off. And then there's the other legacy systems that's like, oh, no, this is like, there's like a big revenue stream attached to it, so don't switch that off. So is the recommendation then to find easier targets to get started with the migration, start small and then iterate and address the bigger chunks later? Or
absolutely not, actually. I was going to say, usually they think, oh, we can switch this off, only for someone to screen, oh, quick, switch it back on again. I didn't know we needed that. Okay, now we know. There's an awful lot of those systems out there. What should we switch off today? And that never works. No, the key is the first stage is on your plan is identify your critical access. You must identify your critical systems. The crown jewel systems, those systems that if they go down, you're out of business. Those systems, those are the ones you tackle first, and you determine any dependencies that they create. That's your primary target. You've got to get those done. You've got to get those done as soon as you can. Then you get to the secondary systems, but and in the end, you're going to have a critical path. If you do this properly, you only have a critical path. Do your critical path analysis and basically say, right, okay, if I've got no delays and everything goes right, it's going to take me X years if it goes perfectly. And you already know, like, the chances of that are next to zero. But at least you have a plan. At least you've identified what is critical. So at least you know what to do and what order to do it in, and so forth. So critical assets. Create the dependencies. Create the critical path for your migration. So what are the things that are important to do. What will delay other things down the line, and so forth. And the other things you can do in parallel because, hey, they're not on the critical path by definition. So I used to work for a software, project management software company. So I learned all these things about, as in your critical path is everything. You've got to guard that and make sure you can do it. All the other stuff will just happen. It's fine, and have the resources to do it.
It's good. Yeah, it's gonna fall into place eventually. Yeah.
Yes.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Thanks for sharing that. Now, I wanna jump back to something you did say earlier, and of course, have to use the term of cryptographic agility again, and I think you framed it in such a way that it's just a code word to say, well, you're going to have to change everything again eventually. So maybe you can speak to that a little bit and give a little bit of your definition of, what does this actually mean?
I'm not going to make any friends on this one. Okay. Right. So here's the deal, okay? These algorithms we've got, when I say they're not going to last, I really mean they're not going to last. I was speaking to someone. No, I wasn't really speaking to them. I was listening to their lecture, not speaking to them. From the University of California. Some of the top people in crypto, I think, cryptographics. And they're saying these algorithms that have come out of NIST, they're not nearly as strong and robust as we might think they are. I mean, there's a few. NIST had a few issues recently. Well, I'll say recently. Along the path, it had some issues whereby something that also was about to get into the final round suddenly got cracked within a couple of hours on a laptop. That wasn't a good look, right? If you're NIST, you're setting the standards, and you're rich at the end of these are our best algorithms, and then something gets really way deep into the finalists, only to get cracked by a problem.
That was Rainbow, right?
Oh, the Rainbow.
I think it was
Psyche.
Also. Oh, yes. Yeah.
The issue, Joe, is this. You speak to the actual mathematicians who basically cracked it. They said, but this problem's been known about for 20 years with that math, with the mathematics that was supporting it. Yeah, they said, we've known about that issue for 20 years. I think, hold on. Someone's not talking to someone here. How does it get into a finalist when the mathematics community have known about this problem for 20 years? And that's what they're basically saying is there's a lot of those in the current algorithms. The algorithms have been designed to mask vulnerabilities. And when they get found, it's all going to start collapsing. And they're saying that, or the lecture was essentially saying, you really don't need to worry about quantum computer. These are going to fail long before quantum computers arrive, which was like, great. Okay. Yes.
It's a very pessimistic view of things.
Right. So we all better get crypto agile pretty quickly then. Yeah. Okay. So there are some serious problems in the, don't use quality, in the stability and the robustness of these algorithms. Some serious problems to the point where these probably aren't the ones that are going to be attacked by quantum computers, or basically they're not going to be the ones that are going to be defending against quantum computers. They'll probably get replaced, almost certainly. They were suggesting a 5-year lifespan at best before someone finds something horrible in them. The reason is for this was that there's not a lot of maths you can build public key crypto systems on, right? Here's the thing. There's not that much mathematics, and we're running out of viable models, which means we're taking things like lattice maths and starting to do, I hate this term, new maths, right? Yeah. That's really not a good thing to start basing, something that's supposed to be, one of the premises of these algorithms, they should have, high degrees of stability. Well, new maths by its very definition is probably not stable because it's new. And the cryptanalysis for this, it's not being done. There's the problem. These PhD students who would normally naturally be picking this up and doing cryptanalysis, really hammering the stuff to make sure it's solid. None of that work is being done. And that's what the that's what the University of California are screaming about, saying no one's doing this. This essential work is not being done, and we're gonna find out the hard way when someone does uncover it. And it's like, oh yeah, but we put it into every system and every piece of hardware you can think of, and now you're telling me that there's this huge vulnerability. That's the fear.
So that's basically the invitation of said cryptographer to say, we have to get cracking on the cryptanalysis. We have to get the global community together to try to shoot holes into this, and maybe to offer a little bit more of an optimistic view. The very reason that those two algorithms were cracked or broken that late in the process maybe shows that the process works because it happened before anything got standardized. So at least we weeded out some of those maybe less resilient ones already. And given the fact that we're promoting migrating to an agile approach rather than just that next set of algorithms, is maybe also that message to say, we've had it quite easy for the last 3-4 decades with RSA being as stable as it was and being suitable for that many use cases. And then the elliptic curve came along for some of the resource constraint stuff, and that helped patch that gap for a certain amount of time. But maybe the message is we're not going to have such a convenient time, and that's why we need to be able to switch more often and also have that mindset in the way that we design our architecture. Is that a fair thing to say?
That's I don't want to say a positive spin. It's a look. You can look at it two ways, can't you? Either the process worked, or we got lucky. Take a pick. Either way. Okay. Let's say fine. Let's say the process did what it was designed to do. That's great. The idea of, well, just because it's new, we don't know how long it will be stable for. By the very essence that it's new, there's not much we can do about that fact. Let's start thinking about the ideas of crypto agility, because the future is a little bit unknown at the moment. We don't even know whether they are actually entirely quantum safe, because we're only just building quantum computers now. We may find out they might not be quantum safe after all. Having a chat with some professor the other day saying, yeah, he wasn't convinced about their quantum safeness. He was a professor of quantum computing. And he said, we'll see. It might not be as safe as we think, which was great. But there's the point. At least with a philosophy of crypto agility, we're going to say, okay, well, let's plan for the worst, hope for the best, but we'll be ready if we have to change quickly, we'll at least be ready. We'll have a mindset that that's where we should go. It's going to be tough. Let's just be straight. You're doing a migration, and you've got to start thinking about crypto agility as well, and basically start abstracting applications from their crypto libraries and so forth, instead of at the moment it's all meshed together. Again, comes back to you've got a real big job ahead of you. It's not just migration. It's actually you need to get yourself into a state that's crypto agile.
Right. And that goes back to the point that we spoke about earlier, right? Where you have a technology aspect, but then you also have an organizational aspect, right? So yes. I think introducing cryptographic agility into your systems and infrastructure will also change the way fundamentally that your organization conducts business, right? Where you have, policy-driven decisions rather than decisions driven by people. You have a lot of automation. You hopefully have like a centralized place that manages all your policies and sets which algorithms are going to be used for which use cases, rather than the developer making that choice.
That's right. And that's absolutely right. I think this really goes on to the governance issue that when we do discovery planning, when you do the crypto discovery on the network and that kind of tooling, we start to see just how bad the governance is, good or bad. But you start to say, well, okay, you see things that are clearly out of policy. I mean, in some cases, you might even see certificates that don't belong to a CA that you're aware of, but it's definitely got the company name on it. Okay. So you're going to be able to take a measure of the maturity of your governance, and that's something else you've also got to put into your plan of when you've got to get your governance in order, because these new algorithms are not going to be anywhere near as forgiving as RSA was, not even close. You get the implementation wrong, it will not forgive you. You'll probably lose your security, but not know it, which is the worst thing in the world. I mean, at least if you didn't encrypt something, at least you could have something on the line that says, look, this didn't encrypt. We could still read the plain text. If it just encrypts very, very, very poorly, and you don't realize, you literally lost all your security, but it's not obvious, that's your worst possible situation. And this is how these algorithms will fail. They will fail through poor implementation, and you won't realize. Yeah.
So, I think that's probably key to understand that it's not necessarily going to be the algorithm itself that breaks, but it is, like you said,
right.
the main vulnerability is in the poor implementation of
Implementations. And that's, if you think about the history of crypto, that's always been the case, hasn't it? It was the poor implementations. As in, yeah, we did it perfectly, but we used the worst pseudo-random number generator you can think of. Even the cat can predict these keys. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's things like that. You can have the best in the world and then use some component that you didn't give enough attention to. Remember, no, that must be properly secure as well. That must be as secure as this, and so on and so on. Poor implementations. They will get you in the end.
Talking about implementations breaking and cryptanalysis, and that brings me to yet another point. And I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on it. How important in all of this to you is collaboration within the industry, within that entire ecosystem, to support this massive task of migration.
It's a little bit of the lack of collaboration is kind of what got part of us into this mess in the first place.
Right. It's a fair point.
So it's pretty important, and it's a pity we hadn't done enough of it. We would be much, much further ahead. Yeah, it's super important. Collaboration means a lot more people are likely to hear the right story. They're more likely to hear a story at all and the right story. Lots of things going on in silos. You hear, well, we do it this way, oh, they do it that way, and so forth. That's not really the best approach, because there's going to be a lot of conflicting information, and then people think, well, which way do we go? And then you start to get this. It all starts to freeze up because people say, well, until I'm sure, I'm not gonna do anything until I'm absolutely sure. So they spend a lot of time trying to make sure that they're on the right path, they're doing the right thing. If we had collaboration, we'd all know, because we'd all agree to it. And well, generally collaboration usually ends up in a collective opinion of this is probably the best way to go, and it's easy to disseminate. We're all singing from the same hymn sheet, as they say. That would speed things up massively. And I know the EU. I know I'm involved in the EU project called Qprep, which is sponsored by the European Union, and that's an effort to do something like that. Basically, get lots of people in the room. Particularly, it's to do with public organisations within the European Union. Help them understand what they need to do, provide resources, get a community together, saying, guys, you're on the same boat, you're in the same type of organization, you're all facing the same sort of challenges. We're talking to people in Finland, Greece, Germany, Spain. It's pretty good, actually. I actually think it's really, really good.
Yeah, and that's sort of the ideal outcome of those collaborative efforts,
yes.
Right? To have this repository of, hey, someone else already faced this particular challenge, and you might be able to learn from how they made their way through it, right? So I think that's great. And so maybe for our listeners, besides Qprep, where else is a good resource to sort of follow the guidance and expertise that you're sharing, your organization is sharing, and then those working groups are sharing that you might be involved with?
It seems to be the industry specific, so the industry verticals, whereby you'll get the financial sector, where they have their own organizational bodies that are providing advice there. They're usually doing a decent job, because they're usually societies of, say the banking community or the insurance community. And they're offering guidance.
Organizations, organizations like FSISEC and
FSISEC, yes.
Right. I think Europol has a working group specifically for...
Europol, that's right. I tried to get on that one. They wouldn't let me in because they said, you're not a financial services organization. Yeah, you're right or not. Yeah. We're in together.
Fair point.
Fair point. Yeah, exactly. Couldn't really argue with that one. But yes, and I think those organizations are great. They're exactly what you want, because they will provide guidance that is, the collective understanding, opinions, things thought through, and real world examples, but basically actualized, the actual stuff that their members are facing, their experience of. So they're great. They're a good model for the dissemination of this. So, yeah.
So Adrian, as we wrap it up, I'm asking sort of what is the one key message that you would give to any type of IT decision makers or CISOs that might be listening to this? What's the one piece of advice that you'd give to help them get started, kickstart that process within the organization?
Yeah,
if there is one.
Apathy will kill you. Yeah, apathy. This is not the time for apathy. This is the time for action. You got to do something. And the thing I usually tell my clients once I start off with the executives is, guys, you're already underwater. You just don't know it. That's the uncomfortable truth. You're already underwater. Let's see what we can do to fix it.
Perfect. Now with that, Adrian, it was a pleasure conversing with you. Thanks very much for taking the time.
And you, Joe.
Thank you.
Cheers, mate. Take care.
The quantum era is already here. With the right tools, the right knowledge, and the right mindset, together we can face it head on. To find out more about PQ Shield and how our cutting-edge solutions can help you secure your data against the quantum threat, visit pqshield.com. Make sure to search for Shielded, the last line of cyber defense, in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else you get your podcasts. Don't forget to click subscribe so you never miss an episode. On behalf of the team here at PQ Shield, thanks for listening.